move back on Emma. Can he get the move done? Look.
This race, Hutchings runs very wide indeed. Yeah, we are live over on the other Gantry TV link, folks. If you want to go check that out with all our nice fancy graphics and stuff like that, the one where with the stream chat that you were watching on earlier. So we appreciate your patience on that one, folks. And we are now have 2 broadcasts running, which is good to see.
That's a world first, I think, for any iRacing series to have it streamed twice in the same place. I will now end the original broadcast and we will scuttle over to Discord to get all of our fancy graphics. So, Evan, I'm going to leave you just take over for a couple of minutes and I will get myself figured out and I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Yeah, so good race on our hands here, and there's a little bit of contact made, and bouncing, Ronan Doherty's been collected in that one over the bus stop chicane. Not too sure who was involved in it with it, but Ronan Doherty picking up even more contact. It's been a disastrous start to race number 2 for him. He's been dumped right down the order, and Ronan Doherty all the way down in 9th position when he started on the front row. Really not a great start to things, as it is still Jason Smith in the race lead, Brandon McGaughan in 2nd, Dylan McClements in 3rd. Danny Dempsey, fabulous race start, as well as Tony Stack. It's Finlay Melvin that was, who spun in towards Ronan Doherty. So, once again, tensions going to be absolutely fantastic amongst those two. And Ronan not going to be furious in the slightest. In terms of our push-to-pass numbers, you can see Jason Smith burning a little bit. Brandon McGaughan actually saving. And then Dylan McClements doing a good job as well, but we know how conservative Dylan McClements can be. We know how composed Dylan McClements can be, as Ronan Doherty is heading all the way back to the pit lane with that wounded car. Very disappointing start to the race for him. And that is very disappointing. Jamal Gandor having a steady start to this evening, having a steady start now to race number 2, despite a troubled start to this evening, I should say. He's now behind what is a wounded Finlay Melvin as well, and Melvin, with no front wing in that Monster Energy machine, is going to have to try and take that one back to the pit lane. Now, as we carry on, we're about 5 minutes in to heat number 2 here, folks. Once again, thanks for your patience of bearing with us. We now should be all good to go, and it is still Jason Smith in the race lead. 1.9 seconds he leads by Brandon McGaughan in 2nd. This is once again Finlay Melvin and Jamal Gandor. Finlay not doing half a bad job defending with the broken front wing. Big dive there from Emma Dempsey. Oh, Emma Dempsey and Jamal Gandor side by side on track. This has always ended well in RTA, and I'm sure this is going to end well once again. And Emma is going to go for the outside here on the Lebaneseman in towards the right-hander of turn number 8 at the heel. Jamal breaks very late. Switchback of dreams for Emma Dempsey. Gets the job done and is ahead. And I think that's the first ever time we've broadcasted a battle with no contact between Jamal and Emma. So, heading on to the I was going to say into the second half of this race, but not quite, given it's the 15-minute heat. We've already had the 10-minute heat. Jason Smith still burning a lot of push to pass at the top of this one, but doing a good job nonetheless. Dylan McClements now within 1 second of Brandon McGaughan. That's for 2nd position. Dylan hungry to try and get up onto that podium. A great champion, of course, is Dylan McClements, but looking for a race win once again. Had 5 podiums in the British Touring Car Championship, 10 in the F4s, but just wasn't able to stand on the top step of that podium. And now riding aboard with Conor Melia in his infamous Conor Melia livery down towards the back half of the circuit. And Conor, of course, an IndyCar ace, was a big voter for the IndyCars and definitely ran the IndyCar campaign when it came to the car and track vote. He's almost been half running this series, looking for a strong, steady run here at Watkins Glen. We're back now looking at Finlay Melvin, who's still in 10th position, despite only having half his bodywork. And Emma Dempsey tries one down the inside. This was always going to end well. It's still behind you. And Emma Dempsey looking for the run on Finlay Melvin, heading up to the right-hander.
Yeah, back now. Thank you very much for that. And it just was... Oh! just going to say I missed out a big instant, but I just saw one. That's Emma Dempsey. It was always on the cards, wasn't it? Emma really aggressive into some of those corners, and she missed out contact earlier on with Finlay Melvin, but unfortunately this time gets involved with somebody, I'm not sure who it is, and she has given up. Is it Phil Upson that she hangled with? Maybe our broadcast director. Let's have a look at a replay. Now we can do that again. Oh, thank God we're back to normality. Let's have a look at the replay. Here's Emma Dempsey going off the distance. Here's a little bit before that as she goes off into the distance. Here's the actual instant, and oh, it can't be. It can't be that man.
Oh no.
It can't be that man.
Oh,
Oh no.
oh, no.
You're actually joking me. Let's go back and look at that again, okay? Because this is obviously going to be reported and sent to the stewards. Let's have a wind back of the tape there.
Can someone
and have a
edit
look.
Oh,
Okay,
blank. Here we go again. All
Jamal's
over this.
right on the. Jamal's starting to come inside. Emma, no, that's on Emma. Sorry, she's gonna blame. I know that she's gonna blame Jamal in the chat because they have a thing going on. But I think the blame there lies squarely on Emma Dempsey. Jamal stayed on the left-hand side. Emma tried to open up the corner for herself, but she just took too much out of it. And unfortunately, for both her and probably Jamal, she ends up in the barrier.
Yeah, Emma was running really well, but very disappointing. I can sense the all-caps message to Jamal Gandor now, unfortunately. But Emma, good pace tonight. Good pace in the IndyCars overall, I have to say. Ran well at Road America, but once again was just plagued by incidents and plagued by the presence of Jamal Gandor. But we look towards the front, and Jason Smith has put another second on the field. Now leads by 3 seconds ahead of Brandon McGaughan. Is quite low on the push-to-pass numbers compared to the other podium placers. But it's not going to matter at this pace. Jason well in the race lead, setting fastest lap after fastest lap. He set a 28.5 in the last lap. McGaughan 28.9. So Jason Smith running very, very strong, as we're now looking at Dermot Toomey and Finlay Melvin.
Yeah, Toomey and Melvin, and one has a full wing and one doesn't. So it's Guinness versus Monster.
Because it's a Monster livery.
Yeah, it's a Guinness
and Red
versus...
Bull gives you wings.
Yeah, and despite what some TikToks tell you, these two should never mix. Let's hope they don't mix on track. That is Phil Upson going for a bit of a spin on a very bad part of the circuit to go for a spin, but manages to recover and keeps that 18 pointing in the right way. He has had a very busy time of it as well, Evan.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil Upson, we saw in race 1 in a very close battle with Gary Corcoran. He's now unfortunately running in no man's land, but still behind Gary Corcoran in 14th position. 14 not the worst for Phil Upson, given he still has quite a few cars behind him. We have 24 runners tonight, although we have lost Dara Halley, Harry McGovern and Josh Brown out of this one. So just the 21 still remaining. Andrew Murphy running 31 seconds off the field. Some would confuse that for his regular pace. Here comes Ronan Doherty trying down the inside on Emma Dempsey and gets the job done. That was the corner where Dempsey went off, of course, and Ronan goes off this time. That'll be an off track, but it's not into the gravel or Armco barrier like Emma was 2 laps ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, that's real unfortunate for Emma. Look how aggressively both Dylan McClements and Conor Melia take that first curve. They are bouncing over the top of it, which is so impressive given how aero dependent these cars are, especially on the floor aero as well. I thought that these quite aggressive curbs on the chicane might start affecting the floor of these cars, but it seems like you can be pretty aggressive over the curbs in a way that I'm not entirely sure if you could do that in the actual IR18. It's been a good race thus far for Conor Melia. He's very comfortably ahead of Peter McCann in 5th place, but Peter's up 1 place in amongst all that. Obviously, a lot of these guys benefiting from Ronan Doherty's mistake, and no more so than Jason Smith, because he has had a very comfortable time with thus far and couldn't really have asked for a better way to open up his account in this championship.
Definitely couldn't. Championship leader after round 1. It's the things he was dreaming of. And now running in 5th place behind Conor Melia. And you can just see he might be coming under a little bit of pressure from Kevin Joyce. But Kevin has burned all that push to pass. And he won't be able to use it to try and catch up Peter McCann in front. Here's the closest main battle on track. Brandon McGaughan, Dylan McClemens, Conor Melia. But once again, unfortunately, we're just suffering, or these drivers, I should say, are suffering a lot from the dirty air, from the air awash over these cars, and it's only really the chicane where you're able to make a move. Cannot follow in the corners. Trust me when I say it is a horrible, horrible experience when you are following a car at Watkins Glen. It's not nice. You've got to work very hard to save your tyres. You've got to work even harder to keep up with the car in front.
Yeah, it's and it's a real, like, once you start to go out of that, it's as difficult as it is to follow and maintain your tires. Once you get out of that slipstream, then you're just way behind because there's so many sweeping bends and long straights here. It's not really a circuit that has a lot of very heavy braking corners. As you say, it's a very difficult circuit to overtake, Evan. But once you start to fall out of that sort of, it's not a DRS train, but it's a slipstream train, really, more than anything else, then you're having to really nuke your push to pass to try and stay up with the guys in front of you, and that's not going to last forever. So it is a case of you're really battling against it. As we see somebody going into the pits there ahead of Brandon McGahan, or somebody pulling aside, that's Andrew Murphy, actually, one of our admins, who no doubt will be getting a shellacking off later on for our difficulties in straight. Yeah, we won't. I'm sure we won't. But yeah, Dylan McClements has Brandon McGahan in his sights, but it is a frustrating one. But I suppose of all the drivers, you'd expect Dylan is the one who'd have a little bit more patience, I think it's fair to say. It's just really whether he's going to get attacked by Connor from behind.
Yeah, I'd love to stay on board here with the 88 if we can, at Dylan McClements, just to see how it's faring for the corners. Into the carousel now, both these guys on IndyCar's primary tyre, so the hardest compound available, the only one that will really last the middle and long race distance. You can just see how Dylan McClements is, he's actually doing a very good job, to be fair, not battling it too much through the corners. Now through the long sweeping uphill right-hander of Toe, turn number 7, you can just see battling. Doing a very good job, I have to say, is Dylan, to battling this very smooth on the steering, saving the tyres. Doesn't opt to burn any push to pass down the mini straight. Is going to save that up the hill, presumably. And Brandon McCahan, yeah, you can just see, able to get on that power earlier. Dylan McClements is almost holding back through the corners just to get the car turned in. Nice through there is Dylan, so he might have a chance if he can keep close through this left-hander, but this is a very difficult one with dirty air. Dylan, thankfully, further back enough to avoid the worst part of the dirty air there, but you can just see out through that final corner. Brandon able to stretch the legs. Dylan has to get on that button to try and get close in through turn number 1. We'll see what it's like up the hill.
Yeah, let's have a look at what we have, but it's going to take an awful lot for Dylan to make up that time. We talked about the slipstream effect in the last round at Road America, going down in towards Canada Corner. We do still have the slipstream effect, but unfortunately in here, you can't really go too wide through these sequence of corners. So even if you get up behind...
Oh, that's a mistake.
Oh, that's a mistake. And a very aggressive move by Dylan, but he had to make it, and he's through. Dylan McClements is through into second place, so a bit of redemption for DDR after Ronan Doherty's unfortunate start. But Evan, that 99 out of 100 times that ends badly, but thankfully for Dylan and Brandon in this case, they managed just about to get the job done.
Yeah, brilliant by Dylan McClements. That is the sort of aggressiveness we don't usually see from him, but he's pulled it out down the inside. Knew that was his last and only opportunity to make the move stick, and a job well done for young Dylan. Jason Smith, rounding for the final couple of corners, is going to take the win here dominantly at Watkins Glen, and we'll be chatting to him again for the first time since he was crowned champion in the F4. Dylan on the button, heading for the final couple of corners, trying to stay ahead of Brandon McGahan. It's getting very close now, but Brandon surely isn't going to be able to follow through this final bend. He's very close, very close. The car washes out almost into the wall, and Dylan McClements is going to come home in second. Cutthroat manoeuvre from the young Dunloy man, and he finishes second. Brandon McGahan in third. Conor Melia comes home in fourth. This is one of our final battles. Finlay Melvin versus Phil Upson. And honestly, Finlay hasn't done a half bad job missing that front wing and running the oval spec.
No, certainly not. He's just practicing for next week, 2 weeks' time. We must get the calendar up
next week,
and have a look at it next week, where we go to the ovals. But yeah, a good job from Finlay to hold off Phil Upson there, and behind them is Ronan Doherty, who surprisingly fell even further down the list. So he must have been caught up in more instances, because he was running at 7th at one point after that initial issue. But going to be very interesting. Brian McCarthy, who won the final race last week. He's starting P2 now. He started P1 last week and managed to finish in first. He's starting
Oh,
P2 behind Danny Dempsey. That really throws the cat amongst the pigeons again.
did Peter McCann not win last week? Or am I totally wrong in saying that?
Maybe Peter won and Brian finished second.
I don't know. They were both higher up than they
My
expected,
brain is
anyways.
melted after all the stress of today.
Yeah,
Apologies.
been a tough evening, folks. Jason Smith in the race win, with the race win, then Dylan McClemens in second, then it was Brandon McGowan, Conor Mealy, Peter McCann, Kevin Joyce, Brian McCarthy, Danny Dempsey, Tony Stack, Simon Hutchings, Dermot Toomey, Finlay Melvin, Phil Upson, Ronan Doherty, Gary Corcoran, Jamal Condor, Emma Dempsey, Ken Doyle, David Ward, and Ollie Meredith coming home in 20th position. Then it was Andrew Murphy, Josh Brown, Harry McGovern, and Dara Halley. Let's hear then from your race winner, Jason Smith. Jason, congratulations. We didn't really think we'd be hearing from you again this season, but you're back, you're with us, and you've already won 2 races. Not a bad start to the season for you.
No, not bad at all. Bit of a lonely 2 races, but I don't mind them.
In terms of this IndyCar then, it's a bit different to your Formula 4, a bit different to the F4s that you last won here. What attracts you to this car? What do you like about it?
To be honest, it was just something different. I never really drove it before, and yesterday I said I'd hop on and see what the race all about, and yeah, and I really like it. It's a single seater. It's my bread and butter, so I said I'd give it a shot.
Heat 3 then, obviously you haven't had to do any overtaking tonight, but it hasn't come easy. What's your plan of action?
Yeah, just like always, I don't really know what damage is like in this, so really like try get no contact or damage the front wing, because I know I have the pace to pick everybody off, so it's just about keeping clean but also making good progress off the start. So we'll see how it happens.
Jason, congratulations and all going well. We'll be chatting to you again later this evening.
Perfect. Thanks very much, guys.
And now, second place with Kevin Galvin, Dylan McClements.
Dylan can't start this interview without talking about that late move on Brandon. Was it something you had planned, or did it just kind of happen and you just decided to throw it in there?
It just kind of happened because I got about turn 1 and I knew I wasn't going to be alongside Brandon for the chicane. And I would say me and him were probably using our push pass a lot. So he went in a bit late and I saw him go in the grass. So I thought he's going to run a bit wide. So I stuck the nose in and it worked.
It was touch and go though. I was saying to Evan that 9 times out of 10 you'd both end up with the barrier. Are you trying to be more aggressive as we go forward? We talked about your patience and that, but is that something that you're kind of consciously trying to be a little bit more maybe assertive on track?
Yeah, definitely. Because I remember the past couple of seasons I've been, waiting there and maybe not going for the move. But if I want to be at the top, you're going to have to go moves and not sit back.
And how are you finding these cars generally? I suppose single seater is probably a bit more kind of the sort of thing that you're going to be looking to race in, but it's a different car. You're finding it's kind of agreeing with you.
Yeah, I like the car overall. I've sit it with it well, but I didn't do any practice on the hard tires for the first couple of laps. I'm all over the shoe, but I really started to get my groove back near the end of the race.
All right, well, Dylan, congratulations on your second place and a very robust move, I think it's fair to say, on Brandon, and hopefully speak to you soon.
All right, see it.
So yeah, speaking of Brandon Evan, I believe he will join us to give his side of the story.
Yeah, very quick chat with third place Brandon McGowan. Brandon, you were running second in that one, but just lost out very late to Dylan. What happened coming through the chicane?
I just I clipped the second curb, the right-hander. I took too much of it and put me out wide for the kind of the second half of that bus stop, and he saw a chance and he got up on the inside. We nearly had it. I thought we were gonna touch, and I kind of ran out a bit wide enough. But yeah, fair play. It was a good move from him.
Pace is good tonight. Are you hopeful for Heat 3?
Yeah, I'll be starting quite far back, but we'll see how it goes. the first lap, I would say, will be a bit of carnage, but see what happens. Hopefully, it all stays clean, and if I get through the first lap without any damage, I'll be happy enough.
Well, Brandon, we'll let you go warm up those tyres and get ready for heat number 3. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good man, cheers.
So good to hear from the top 3 there, Jason, Dylan and Brandon, and all hopeful for this third heat, but very sceptical that there could be a little bit of opening lap chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, but I'm really interested to see how Brian does. He did such a good job last time in a similar position. So very interested to see if he can hold on. But great to see the likes of Kevin Joyce up there and Peter McCann. These are some real RTA veterans that you see having some fantastic battling, but probably don't get the same amount of airtime as they probably deserve, given what's happening up front. So this feature race really gives them an opportunity, and particularly this IndyCar Championship thus far, it does seem to be a case of not just the top 8 being reversed, but guys that normally are further down the grid getting an opportunity to strut their stuff as well.
Absolutely. As we take a look at the standings now quickly before heat number 3, Peter McCann on top by 10 points, Dylan McClements in second, Ronan Doherty in third, would be the championship leader but did receive a 15-point penalty. Sean McGoldrick in fourth, and it is Conor Mealy, Brandon McGaughan. Johnny Reid, who's not here tonight, he'll take this as his drop, had a great week in Road America, and it is Brian McCarthy, Sean McClements who'll also take this as his drop, and Andrew Murphy in 10th position. It's really been a fall from grace from Andrew, unfortunately. Top 10 in the championship coming into tonight, but hasn't had the rub of the green here as we get rolling for the formation lap, and it is young Danny Dempsey who will start on pole position. Of course, the son of Keith Dempsey, who we know around RTA, a young karting prodigy who had a great weekend in White River in the Miami Championship. He's also been to the Miami World Finals last year in Valencia, which was certainly a nice sunny experience for him, and he's starting on the front row for the first time here in RTA.
Yeah, it's very interesting that Danny is living in the same sort of space that an awful lot of drivers that are sons of well-known other drivers, in that they're trying to make their own mark, they're trying to put their own stamp on things. They don't want to be the son of or the daughter of or the brother of. They want to be their own person. So Danny, this is a great opportunity for him to stamp his own marker, and what better opportunity for him than to start a race in first and see if he can stick it out. I mean, his old man won plenty of league races in this league going back along, won plenty of championships going back along in various iterations. So I'm sure he'll be hoping to be the latest Dempsey to stand on the top step of an RTA podium. As you saw there, this is our final race of the evening, the feature race with the top 8 reversed. We talked about it, but Evan, of the, let's say, top 4 that are starting here, which one do you think is the best chance of crossing the line first?
Well, I mean, he did it last week, didn't he? Peter McCann, I would say, has shown good pace tonight. Certainly out of the top 4 has shown the best pace, but I think the ones to really watch would be Brandon McGaughan and Conor Mealy, because they have less cars to overtake, but equally as good pace. Obviously, we've got to keep an eye on Jason, but as he said, he's very new to this car, doesn't really know how it works in the dirty air in situations such like this, and IndyCar is not the easiest thing to overtake, that's for sure. You can just see Jason trying to pump the tyre temperature into those Firestone primary tyres. It's going to be difficult, but I would keep an eye on McGaughan and Mealy. Those would be my 2 picks for this one, but that could be totally wrong. It could be all chaos at turn number 1, and we could see Gary Corcoran and Jamal Candor fighting for the race win sooner rather than later.
Not sure whether we'll have an opportunity to have a quick look at the intro graphic that we would normally show you with the blimp shots that I painstakingly look over every week. But track temps are really high when I was looking at it the other day. They're around 53, 54 degrees. There we go, on the ball, Ronan Doherty. 53 degrees, there you can see it. 26 degree track or air temperature, and only very slightly small bit of wind. As you look, this is indeed the boot configuration. There is the boot coming out now, and the drivers are on it at this very moment. Yep, so we come back and around. And this is where the drivers are coming around now, and then you take that final turn. Not as much of a kink on the main straight. That is my poor use of Adobe After Effects. But yeah, track temp is 53, Evan, so you'd imagine that this could help them warm the tyres as we get racing.
Absolutely, as now we go racing for the final time here at Watkins Glen. Great start for Brian McCarthy on the outside. Jason Smith immediately looking to put it in the mix, and barrelling down the inside goes Peter McCann and Kevin Joyce looking for the early spaces. Brian McCarthy leads out of the first corner. Danny Dempsey's got a good start as well and is in second place here, heading up the hill, and might even look for a move ahead of Brian McCarthy fairly soon. No push to pass enabled on this opening lap. You've got to use your slipstream and your straight line speed to your advantage here. Kevin Joyce looking for the move into the chicane, but Danny Dempsey pivots to the outside, and he's going to try hang around the outside here, almost close to contact between himself and Kevin Joyce. Joyce is pushed across the chicane. He's not the only one to take that expedition. Peter McCann bubbles over it as well. Jason Smith is already up to 5th.
Yeah, great start for Smith. He was already up 2 places going into the opening corner, and now picks up another one again. Unfortunately, I think Peter got shoved out as well as Tony Stack there earlier on, who run further down, but nonetheless, a great start for Brian McCarthy, getting ahead of Danny Dempsey going down the main straight, or one of the main straights, and then managing to stick it through the chicane. So the M&M sponsored car looking for another famous feature race here. He might start making a habit of this, but Peter McCann, a man who we thought could potentially finish in first, he's a lot of work to do now because he finds himself behind Jason Smith, who is rapid this evening. And Evan, it's already looking like Jason could potentially have our first in a long time triple win.
Yeah, we haven't had one in quite some time as Brandon McGaughan goes for the move on Danny Dempsey. McGaughan is in second place. Dempsey bobbles over the curb, but he'll look to tuck into the slipstream or even stay on the outside here heading up the hill. That is very vicious bounce off for Danny Dempsey, and now he's going to be under pressure from Jason Smith and Kevin Joyce. And oh, look how close it's getting, heading down the main straight. Jason Smith opts for the grass. Is he going to have the straight line speed? Not too sure. He's saving his push to pass. He tucks in behind. Didn't fancy going round the outside of the turn 3 motorsport man, and there's contact between the two, and Danny Dempsey's been tripped round. Kevin Joyce gets through it by the skin of his teeth. Smith clips Dempsey. Damage potentially for Jason Smith. He wanted to avoid it. He said that in an interview. He hasn't. Carbon fiber's flown off there.
Yeah, carbon fiber in the all over the place. I thought that Jason had lost a part of his front wing in amongst that, but he seems to be okay. Unfortunately, Peter McCann as well getting caught up in instance. So very unfortunate for the silver machines thus far. We'll have to have a look at that incident again. It looks like Jason was slightly surprised on Danny's on the brakes, but Jason is quicker on this track and needs to realize that others aren't necessarily going to use the same braking marker that he does. So let's see there, the Verizon sponsored Danny Dempsey car. Oh, that's fully on Jason, I think. That's Jason losing it over the curb and then not having the control of the car to be able to put it on the brakes. And not sure what happened to Peter McCann in the background of all of that. Let's have a quick look here as the car reassembles itself, and it looks like Peter lost it all by himself.
Yep, Peter did, losing it all by himself across the chicane. I think we'd need to go on Jason Smith's onboard again to have a look at that one. Oh, big collision, and that's why Peter's got the damage. I'm not too sure who that was who clattered into him. Let's have a look then once again at this Jason Smith-Danny Dempsey incident and just see, does Danny move over as Jason is on the inside curb? So Jason loses it through here, gets a little bit of a slide. Yeah, he does tag the rear of Danny. I'm not too sure there was much Danny Dempsey could do there. It'll be discussed by the stewards if reported by Danny, but I think he's very unfortunate to be spun round there.
Yeah, well, if I was Danny, I would be reporting it anyway, especially given it was a real opportunity for him to potentially make a good running, even if he was eventually going to be taken over by, overtaken by Jason Smith. But that all kind of came back to the car that you see in front of you, not Conor Melia, but the one he is trying to overtake, Kevin Joyce, because Jason Smith, made a move down the inside of turn 1, and Kevin got pushed wide over that, and then I suppose he'd already been pushed out by a couple of cars in this race, including on the opening lap. So Kevin probably thought to himself, well, I'm not going to be bullied here. Oh, there's a big accident. That's Jason Smith. That's a huge accident. That's Jason Smith. He's off. Oh, so much for a triple win. Jason Smith, the 26 car, getting it all kinds of wrong at the end of the boot. Huge instance here in this 4th lap. Evan, what happened there?
That's going to cost Neville a few pounds anyways. Let's have a look at Jason Smith. Big damage for whatever has happened to the number 26. heading through the left-hander. Oh, just totally loses himself. Big overcorrection into the Armco barrier. Oh, very lucky. Doesn't slide into Conor Melia and does a great job to get off the racing line to hand it to Jason. His racing experience kicked in there. That's a mistake totally on his own. There's no big discussion about that one. Just ran very wide, bounced over the runoff there, which is in by no means smooth. Overcorrection into the wall. Day done.
Yeah, disaster well, not a disaster for Jason, because it's been a good opening round thus far, but this is not the way he wanted to have finished it. And again, I was going to comment on it, but again, when I looked at that replay on iRacing, it looked like part of the nose cone had been dislodged. The front wing had been dislodged, should I say. Sorry, apologies. That, I wonder, is there an issue with aero there, and did that affect him? Because it just looked like he completely lost it, and he's essentially been running on autopilot this evening, so very, very unlike Jason for that to happen. So I wonder, is there damage that we can't quite see? As that's Ken Doyle getting a little bit squirrely on the exit there of the peel of the boot, and then coming together with Jamal Gador. Jamal will already no doubt be in front of the stewards for an instant that probably isn't really his fault, but he certainly doesn't want to be in front of them for an instant that is his fault, as he goes down and tries to have a look, but behind him is Finlay Melvin, who is keeping an eye on the Lebanese man to make sure that he is all in order. Brian McCarthy, Brandon McGowan putting pressure under Brian, but Brian's doing a great job here. He's just making that I-18 as wide as he possibly can, which, as you said, Evan, is easier around here than in other tracks. I would wonder about next week, though, because the close racing that we've had isn't really going necessarily to plan this evening. So it would be interesting to see when they all start to bunch together when we get to the Brickyard next week.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic next week. Folks, just if you're supposed to be doing a night shift or something, just book it off. Just tell the boss I won't be in, or at least get a TV put up or something in the office. There's going to be box office. Come to the Brickyard. I'm going to be like a kid on Christmas, but that's a talking point for later. Brandon McCollum is going to have a tough time to try and overtake Brian McCarthy here, but he has had exceptional pace tonight and was unfortunate to lose out to second in the last heat. 2 wins in the British Touring Car Championship for Ballycastle's Brandon McCollum. Both came in Heat 3. He's on course for a big result here in Heat 3. He'd like to make that a lot better. Has 33 more seconds to push to pass than Brian McCarthy. All in all, not a whole lot, especially when overtaking is still difficult, even with the boost assistance. But heading up the hill we go. This is a great opportunity for the number 11 on the M&M's machine. Weaving all round it, trying to tuck into the slipstream now. Pivots to the outside. It's going to be very difficult to go the long way here. Both on the button, both absolutely burning. And Brandon McCollum is round the outside here. Who breaks the later of the two? It's Brian McCarthy who stays in front.
That's a superb line from Brian to cut across, and really brave for Brian there as well, because he could have potentially collided with Brandon if Brandon stuck it in there, but good racing from both of them. Brian, as you say, I think that push to pass will come into it in a little bit, but because he is eventually, that's going to run out at some point, and if it ran out, if he's in the similar position when it runs out that he was earlier on, he's going to find Brandon go by him, but that will be a bridge that he is going to have to cross later on. Ronan Doherty still has plenty of push to pass, and after a disappointing second race, he's right bang amongst the leaders here with a great opportunity to make up points on Jason Smith. Brian really is doing an outstanding job thus far. Again, used the feature race to his huge advantage last week, and once again showing that this feature race really gives drivers an opportunity. This is going to be very tight though. 10 minutes to go, and every single time they get to the back straight, it seems that Brandon has a better run. So Brian's going to have to absolutely nail that turn 1 for the next probably 8 or 9 laps anyway, at least, or 7 or 8 laps, to make sure that he doesn't get caught. So Brian's on the push to pass. Brandon doesn't feel like he needs to be, because he has the slipstream. He's not going to make a move. Obviously, he doesn't know whether Brian is using that push to pass or not. That's a big mistake from Brandon, though. Gets it all kinds of wrong through the chicane, and that will now give Brian an opportunity to break that toe and put Brandon back into the clutches of Dylan McClemens, and we all know how that went last time around. Dylan will be licking his lips and fancying an opportunity here, and he's going to be backed up by his cousin Ronan as well. So Brandon, he's a bit of a fight here because he's stuck in a bit of a sandwich.
Yeah, I think it's been the first ever time that an IndyCar race has had 3 drivers from County Antrim fight amongst each other, but here they are, McCaughan, McClements, Doherty. 2 Team DDR cars against 1, whatever team Brandon's racing for these days, really. Brandon survives the initial Team DDR onslaught, and he will put the hammer down and try catch back up to Brian McCarthy. He does have the pace on Brian, that's the thing. Brian is going to find it very difficult to pull away, and of course doesn't want to burn up too much of that push to pass either. For the final corner then, we're over halfway through this one. Still nip and tuck a little bit down the order. We've had some movers and some shakers. Andrew Murphy up 11 positions to 10th, and of course Ronan Doherty being one of those movers and shakers up 10 positions to 4th.
Yeah, it's a really good race for Ronan, considering how his second race went. I mean, there's obviously no doubt that he's quick, is Ronan, but just unfortunately, that mistake in probably the worst possible time you could probably make it, because you just have absolutely no time to recover. But Ronan, hot on the heels of Dylan McClements here, just having a look up and down the order to see who else is having a particularly good run of it. But yeah, some of those who haven't, unfortunately for Danny Dempsey, that's a real pity as well for Danny. A great opportunity for him, and really, as we said, no fault of his own. So it's going to be something that the stewards are going to have a look at as Ronan goes for a move down the inside of Dylan Clements. And it looks like Dylan played the teammate game there. He's going to leave him through and leave him have a go. Now we're behind the back marker, and that's going to give Brandon McGahan the opportunity to go through. I think he's taken it. Superb racing there from Brandon in the number 11 car. Saw the lapped car go down the inside. That's Jamal Gandor, who seems to be involved in everything, whether he wants to be or not. And obviously moving over was Brian McCarthy, and Brandon just saw a gap and took it.
Well done, Brandon McGahan. That is the moves you got to make. I mean, close quarters racing such as this, and Dylan McClements, Ronan Doherty, I should say, you feel, is going to follow him through. Ronan now ahead of Dylan, but Dylan will be fighting his cousin and teammate to try and get in front and on that podium and cement himself as the lead Team DDR driver here in the IndyCars. Heading up the hill, Brian McCarthy now very low on that push to pass, so Ronan Doherty, if he activates it, should be able to breeze past, but of course you can only use it in 20-second intervals no matter how long you have left, and there's a big toe for Brian McCarthy here on Brandon McCaughan, but Doherty goes for the outside line. There'll be no moves made here, they all fall single file as Brian McCarthy has a bit of a slide mid-corner, holds onto it well, should stay in front.
Yeah, I mean, that's taking the pressure off massively now from Brandon, because it was clear that Brandon probably had the overall pace as Ronan Doherty tries a pretty risque move in the 17 car down the inside of Brian, who shuts the door fairly firmly. It's kind of like having a Calypso or a Wibbly Wobbly Wonder go up against an M&M. Interesting. For the different paid schemes. But yeah, Ronan again as well. You look at the push to pass numbers. Ronan's 150 against Brian's 44. It's going to be exceptionally difficult for Brian McCarthy to try and hold on to this second place in the 21 machine.
Got to be quite difficult, especially given how good Ronan has been pace-wise here in heat number 3. A little bit further back from these, Conor Melia chasing down Kevin Joyce, but Kevin doesn't have the advantage of a car in front of him, so he is going to be under pressure here. I think Kevin is in one of Fernando Alonso's Indy 500 liveries, potentially from the one that he didn't qualify for when he was knocked out by Kyle Kaiser in the Junkos Holliger. It's well worth a watch on YouTube if you've never seen it before. McCarthy on the push to pass button once again, so is Ronan Doherty. 138 seconds for him, almost 100 more, actually is over 100 more than Brian McCarthy, and there was a car pulled off there to the left hand side, looked to be Phil Upson, who is just being lapped now. Here comes McCarthy, once again looking for the race lead, once again not close enough, is compromising himself a little bit with his racing line, and now makes a mistake, and Ronan Doherty and both Dylan McClements are through, and Brian McCarthy is off the circuit here, and is falling out of the top 5, just stays in, no he doesn't. Damage for McCarthy, that front left is gone, and I think that could be the day done.
Yeah, I think that's staying done for the 21 machine, unfortunately, and it was always going to be difficult. You were talking earlier about the need for Brandon to try and put pressure on Brian, but really, you just wondered with that much time in the feature race, there's so many times you have to get every corner absolutely perfect, and for Brian, you know, he's not a machine in the way that some of these other guys are. The pressure is going to tell, and oh, it just looked like that left rear, it never had traction going through that corner, and the car was constantly pulling him to the left all the way through despite his best efforts. And it's a difficult one there, because you try and overcorrect, you end up in the Armco on the right. If you don't do enough to correct, you end up what's happening there, but the minute the car got through that opening section of the chicane, it always looked like the left rear wasn't planted.
Yeah, and it's a corner we've seen a lot of drivers make mistakes tonight, including the one we're on board with, Brandon McGaughan. Ronan Doherty has a fabulous run on him up the hill, and Doherty is looking for another win here in the RTA IndyCar Series. Tucks into the slipstream, off the Newman Haas livery in front, and Ronan Doherty comes to the outside here, looking for the move. Oh, Brandon McGaughan, is he going to be able to make it? No, stays behind, doesn't come in around the outside. Still too early in the day for that one, says Ronan, and he's going to just stay behind and try force Brandon into a mistake, which is not impossible because we have seen Brandon make mistakes tonight.
Yeah, it can happen, absolutely. I mean, everyone has a mistake in them, especially that chicane is so tricky and technical, and you're trying to take as much to curb as you can, but also, you know, potentially getting it wrong, and that's going to be a flashpoint, as it always is in the 6 hours. If you go back and I guarantee you, if you look next week, as Ronan just has a little bit of a look around the outside just to make sure that Brandon knows that he's there, and he gets a good run off the final corner, which means that, or sorry, this isn't the final corner, we're still in the final section, but Ronan's going to have the inside. Brandon did do slightly better there though, so he's going to have the run now, at least until the back straight. But yeah, I guarantee you, if you look at the iRacing highlights or lowlights next week when they come out of this weekend 6 hours, there are going to be an awful lot of clips of people getting it wrong at the chicane on the opening lap. Getting it all kinds of wrong. There's Ronan Doherty just taking a trip off. It's just as well the runoff is so wide on the outside, but he's going to get that slipstream, and I'm not sure about this, Evan. I'm glad that Ronan held off there, because if he had used what was an illegal exit to gain extra momentum to try and overtake, I don't know what the stewards would have to say about that. But anyway, just before I finish my ramble, like that is a real flashpoint, that chicane section, particularly on the opening lap. So that will be a feature of accidents, particularly on the opening lap, as I said, of the 6 hours of Glen. Thankfully, we didn't see any pileups this evening, but it is an exceptionally technical track, Evan, and it's so easy to make mistakes.
Absolutely, very easy to make mistakes. Most of those low lights will be just coming from wildfire racing, I imagine. But
if
nevertheless,
we were to enter a car, but unfortunately we're not. So I'm afraid.
Oh.
But I can tell you,
iRacing will have to find some other content. So
on the subject of wildfire and Glen, thanks very much, Evan. I appreciate that.
anytime,
Yeah.
sir.
There's a previous commentator in this series by the name of Jack Canan, who people most certainly know. But Jack won the 6 hours of the Glen with wildfire racing. I said, "Oh, that's a big squirrely moment for Ronan Doherty," but just about managing to save it. That's twice he's done that in 2 laps. Not quite as dramatic the last lap as this lap, but manages to collect it. But yeah, definitely something to watch next lap to see if Ronan will do the same again. But yeah, Jack and Galvin. That's a big mistake! Huge mistake for Ronan Doherty, overcommitting to the entry in the corner. And I just talked about that chicane in the last lap. He clips the right rear, should I say. He goes off, and Dylan McClements then sails off into the sunset. Big mistake from Ronan Doherty there, and an unusual part to make it.
I don't know how the rear right's not totally blown off that car. He definitely hit that inside wall. Let's have another look then. You could see it as soon as he turned in. Turned in way too early. That car was totally unsettled. And Brandon McGaughan and Dylan McClements are going to fight in the last lap here. Let's have a look. Bang! Oh, the front left. Okay. That is a miracle on a similar level to the water into wine. But Ronan Doherty is still going into this race. Definitely hit that inside wall heavy. He's a lucky boy.
Yeah, exceptionally lucky that his race hasn't been ended with that incident, and that he's going to probably cross the line into third position. But as I said, a very strange one for Ronan Doherty.
Dylan has the run here.
He's gone into the pits now, so Ronan's out of it, having been in such a strong position. Dylan, as you say, potentially has the run, but he hasn't taken it off track. Actually, that's a perfectly legal one, so that means that he's going to be able to have a go here.
Yes, and he's taken a leaf out of Ronan Doherty's book. Run wide, get the launch up the hill, and try something into the bus stop chicane. Here comes Dylan McClements for his first win in 3 seasons. He's going to try and commit this one round the outside on Brandon McGohan, who breaks latest. It's Dylan McClements. He sends it across the chicane, and round goes Brandon McGohan. I think it's under his own accord. Dylan McClements sees the C's part in front of him, and he's in the lead of an RTA race on the last lap for the first time in God knows how long. Kevin Joyce finds himself in second. McCohan has big damage. Conor Amelia could end up on an IndyCar podium once again.
I would beg to differ there. Looking by the first look at it, we'll have to look at a replay before we finish this race. But it looked to me as if that was on Dylan McClements. Try to move that. Really, it's on Dylan to try and make sure that move sticks. And
I don't know. We'll have to take another look before we comment. We don't want to ruin what could be a race-winning moment for Dylan McClements. He hasn't won a race since his LMP2 championship winning season, which was 3 seasons ago now, but it is going to be finally a win for Dylan McClements. He almost was thinking of jacking it all in if he couldn't take another win, but now he can, as controversial as it may be. Dylan McClements takes another win for Team Didier in the RTA IndyCar Series. Kevin Joyce comes home in second. Fabulous performance and under the radar for Kevin. We'll have to take another look at that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have to take another look at that because Conor Amelia finishes in third and Brandon McGohan is down in sixth. And a very instant-packed race. And funnily, not where we expected it to be instant-packed. We kind of expected instants at the beginning. Obviously, Danny Dempsey, that seems like a long time ago now, where Danny Dempsey got involved in that incident with Jason Smith. Then Jason going off and then Ronan going off, and now Dylan McClements and Brandon McGohan coming together, and Ronan Doherty. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Dylan goes very aggressively over the curb, and yeah,
Brandon's out of control before they make contact. I think,
Brandon is out of control,
Dylan has still clipped them.
Can we have a look back at this? Because I would say that Dylan goes aggressively over the curb and kind of bounces across the track slightly. Let's have a look at that. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, you have to kind of go sped up here, don't you? And that's the clip of the rear.
And I think that's going to be on Dylan McClements. We'll have a chat with him anyway and see what he has to say. He joins us in the commentary booth.
Does he? Do we not do results first now?
Oh, let's do the results, so.
As Jason Smith is your race winner. Dylan McClements, you think I'd know. Dylan McClements is the race winner. Kevin Joyce in second, Conor Amelia in third, Simon Hutchings in fourth, and it is Dermot Toomey in fifth, Brandon McGohan in sixth, Tony Stack in seventh, ahead of Ronan Doherty, Peter McCann, Brian McCarthy, Ken Doyle, Ollie Meredith, Andrew Murphy, David Ward, Jamal Gandor, Gary Corcoran, Jason Smith, Finlay Melvin, Danny Dempsey, and Phil Upson in 20th position. And then in 21st is Emma Dempsey, Dara Halley, Josh Brown, and Harry McGovern. The bottom four all not getting much running in there. Right then, with Kevin is your race winner, Dylan McClements.
Dylan, congratulations on a provisional win. Again, we kind of talked the last time about a coming together between yourselves and Brandon where it worked out. This, unfortunately, in a very similar space, is one that didn't. Talk me through it from your point of view. Yeah, let's start there.
Basically, last lap move, I was trying to send it as much as possible, and then unfortunately, white Brandon. I'm sorry to Brandon.
Yeah, because it looked like obviously you were trying to stay to the left of that curve as much as possible, but unfortunately, you kind of hit it so aggressively that it just forced you to bounce out wide. Like obviously there's never any intent, but if anything, you were kind of overly accommodating, which put you on a line, which ultimately kind of proved your downfall.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to set that second curb as much as possible, but I didn't realize how big it was and how it was car so bad. But unfortunately, it ended that way, and I don't really want to be running races like this all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think anybody who's watched you for any period of time knows how you race, so I don't think anybody would be overly concerned about that. But in terms of the race itself, like it's, I obviously like unfortunate last lap incident, but the race itself was kind of full of instant generally. Like Ronan had an off, Jason had an off. You had to come in together with Danny Dempsey at the beginning. It seemed like a kind of a mad one. How did it feel like from your perspective? And going into that, or as a follow on to that question, how do you feel going into the ovals next week?
Well, this race it did seem chaotic, but I seemed to work my way through it and didn't get much into chaos at the very start. But no, I've never really done ovals except for the trucks on RTA, so we'll have to see how that goes. Hopefully we're not like down the grid, but be an interesting one because anyone could be up the grid, so it'll be an interesting fight for the win.
And what's the plan in terms of preparing? Are you going to look at IndyCar videos? Are you going to watch some YouTube videos? Are you going to run some laps? Like, what's the plan in terms of trying to understand the world of oval racing?
I'll probably watch a couple of YouTube videos to see if there's like any lines, but as far as I know, I think it's just keep as tight as you can. But maybe put some laps in before Tuesday, Monday, because I've never really done Indy. I don't know if it's flat or whatever, but from the Indy 500, I don't think it's flat.
Okay, well, we shall see. And yeah, it's definitely not going to be just put your right foot down and keep going. Look, we're looking forward to seeing you next week. Just an unfortunate incident. As I said, anybody who's watched you race for any period of time knows what kind of racer you are, and they know that there was very much no malice in that. Just one of those things that, as I said, I think you actually overly tried to overcompensate and ended up making things worse. But then looking forward to seeing what you could do in the ovals. Looking forward to seeing how the new challenges face you. And look, congratulations for at least a P1 on track, because if you're crossing the line first, it means that in the balance of things you had a good evening. So hopefully the punishment won't be too difficult and you still get a good race result nonetheless.
Yeah, cheers, Kevin.
Okay, so that's Dylan joining us. And fairness, Eva, just before we get our next interviewee in, straight away put his hands up. I was interested to see what he made of it, but in fairness, Dylan straight away put his hands up and said the onus was on him.
Look, fair play. That's the sportsmanship that's developed in RTA. He's not the only one who admit when things go wrong, but certainly he does it in a mannerly fashion and admitting straight away. As you said, Kevin, he's still got first, so he still did something right, but yeah, an unfortunate one. But look, it gave us a little bit of drama. Let's hear from someone who had a quieter evening tonight. Kevin Joyce joins us now. Kevin, it's safe to say things are going a lot better in the Indy cars and the touring cars, I think. You're on the podium in the second round of the season.
One swallow doesn't make a summer, Evan, but yeah, delighted to finally get me back on the podium on the sharp end of the grid. So hopefully this will continue, but let's see what happens.
It was almost the end of the evening very early for you when Danny Dempsey got spun in front of you and you just about avoided it. Not the only collision you avoided tonight. Are the reaction times at their peak now to avoid these things?
I think it's just dumb luck, to be honest. It's just right place, right time, and that's been me. So, like when you see an obvious gap, it's obviously a couple of times you see the cars spinning, and then you'd see what direction they're going to go, and you only have a split second to make that call. And I think it's the same for everyone, to be honest.
Oval racing then next week, and a lot of the guys don't have much oval experience. Do you sense a bit of an opportunity for yourself when the order could be mixed up?
I think I'm in that same category with not much oval experience. But as you say, with the toe and with the strategy and everything, it should be really interesting, different kind of racing. I did briefly had to go at the RTA truck races, which was a lot of fun too. So yeah, really looking forward to giving the ovals a go next week.
Kevin, thank you very much for joining us and congratulations on the podium.
Cheers, Evan. Thank you.
And now finally, our final podium placer, Conor Melia with Kevin.
Connor, you love this racing, you love these cars, and you're again on the podium. Good to get a good result because you're going into what's going to be your speciality next week.
Yeah, I am honestly fairly shocked to be talking to you. Had a absolutely huge spin. I can't believe I didn't hit anything. Again, yeah, it was a lot of luck there. Avoiding some, I came very close to murdering Jamal as he hit the barrier. But yeah, no, good. It's the best I could have hoped for. yeah, it was a tough race, really tough.
Yeah, it was a bit of a chaotic one because you were first on scene as well. We're just having a look at it here. After the Danny Dempsey Jason Smith collision. So Danny went off in front of you as well, which meant you had to take a slightly wider line through what's a kind of a high aero corner. I know you said obviously you love racing these cars and that, but in terms of getting to grips with the IR18 after the update, how are you finding things after the update? We're just having a look at your. Unfortunately, Ronan Hederman's been very unkind in his showing your spin through the chicane. Which we don't get to show very often, podium setters doing something wrong. But just as you do that, you actually overtook Brian McCarthy, who was ahead of you, who also had his own instance. So it seemed like that kind of race.
Yeah, no, it was kind of just fighting to survive. This track, obviously, with the big long straight up the hill as well, leads to like a really strong toe through that bus stop. That's difficult to go, as I showed, difficult to go through on your own, and very hard to go through side by side. So, but yeah, the car feels really good. It's not too different. The tires are slightly different. They take a bit more warming up, but I'm very interested to see what it's like at Indy next week with because they've just slightly changed the super speedway aero package. So it'll be very interesting to see how they handle and what the racing's like.
So you're obviously, most of the other rest of the league is going into this with trepidation around IndyCar and oval racing. Are you going into it with trepidation about the rest of the league, given that they don't have as much experience racing in that kind of close quarters as you do?
Not like the lads are like, especially up the top. It's still racing. It's not completely different. And with the high speed, it's not like a NASCAR race where you're all bump drafting each other down the straight. You have a bit of a gap between each other. But yeah, a couple of laps in, especially if the setup isn't too sketchy, which I can't imagine it will be. It shouldn't be the most difficult thing to get the hang of. You might see some later on in the 20-minute race. Sort of lapped cars may come into it and may cause difficulty because it's fairly difficult to kind of predict that the racing line is obviously you can't really pass if someone is just following on the racing line. So passing lapped cars might be a bit tricky, but it'll be interesting to see how the lads, especially who haven't done it before, will adapt to it. I'm sure they will get on fine. So
Well, and you bring me nicely to my final question and the final question of the evening. I don't know much about oval race. Well, I know about oval racing, but I don't know the in-depths of it. Alternates or no, once we start
No.
getting towards 15, 20 minutes.
you can't run alternates. You can only run primaries on ovals.
That shows my lack of knowledge. Well, I was hoping that we might get a little nugget there in terms of setup, but just goes to show you. Okay, well, in place of that, what's the most important part of setup when it comes to running on ovals?
Like on the road courses, the kind of ARB, the roll bars and stuff aren't mega important. They can help you kind of handle the car a bit easier. But on the ovals, when you're running in traffic, being able to change the roll bars and the weight checker, kind of knowing what they do, will make it a lot easier for you. It'll chew the tires up less. I can't imagine the tires will be a big issue in the 10 and 15-minute races. But if you can get the hang of the weight checker and the roll bars, you should be flying, especially in traffic.
All right. Well, there you go. From a bad question, a good question rises. And an even better answer. Connor, thanks a million for joining us as ever. Congratulations on your podium position. A good bonus for you. And really looking forward to next week. We're massively excited. I know you are too. So bring on the brickyard.
Cheers, lads. Hope to talk to you again next week.
Hopefully, indeed. Evan, just before we wrap up, we'll bring in Ronan as well, because obviously Ronan did a great job of getting things going last minute. How are we feeling about the series thus far, and how are we feeling about going to the Brickyard next week? I'll ask you, Ronan, first, because Evan, I know how you're feeling about next week, but Ronan, from a broadcasting perspective, how will it change things?
I don't think we've ever been to an oval yet, but yeah, I think my lack of knowledge is going to be as probably worse than yours, Kevin, to be honest. But from a broadcasting perspective, I'm really looking forward to it. I really wish that we'd had a more of a push for a feature length race for the entire thing, because I think that would have made things interesting with maybe a little bit of a pit stop or something in there. But again, I'm looking forward to it just as much as you guys are.
Evan?
I'm very excited because the Indy 500 is one of the highlights of my year, and obviously getting to see lads that I know well race it, and especially when they haven't raced before, I think it's going to be exciting. I'm just hoping it's a good race and we don't get a lot of nonsense, because if you want nonsense in motorsport, have an oval race. But I think it's going to be clean. Hopefully it'll be clean. There's a lot of lessons to be learned, and I hope these guys do go off and do their research and do a bit of their practice, because we are definitely throwing them in the deep end. As Ronan said, I'm quite disappointed that we didn't push for a feature race, because I think that would have been very cool if you had it on a full spectacle and we do crown a winner of maybe a 100-mile race or something like that. But yeah, I'm very excited. I was a big advocate for IndyCars alongside Conor Melia. I will try teach some people some of the technical stuff next week on the stream. I'll go off and do an extra bit of homework, and we can have a fantastic broadcast for, I'm still going to call it the RTA Indy 500.
Yeah, I think we're all in the same boat regarding a special event, but perhaps that's something that we could do on week 13, or maybe some gap in the future. But I will leave that up to others to decide. Look, from us, a very big thanks for your patience this evening. Obviously, it's a slightly different broadcast. I'm very glad that we managed to get something for you, as opposed to just having nothing for the opening race and a half. And as we said, very, very, very rarely does this ever happen for us. So we do appreciate your patience and your company for this evening. We will be back with.
Ooh, Kevin, driver today.
Oh, yes, I must get to the most important part of the evening. No, it's not the most important part of the evening, but it is an important part of the evening. And the fact that we're looking at the number 10 McLaren liveried machine while we're talking about driver of the day is no coincidence, because Kevin Joyce is this week's driver of the day. We spoke to him earlier on the stream. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to announce it to him then, but congratulations to Kevin. A great run and a second place finish. See, my brain is turned to mush. I can't even remember. He finished second. Yes, I'm going to go with that because Connor finished third. Yes, okay, all good. Yeah, a second place finish in the final race for the number 10 machine. So massive congratulations to Kevin. Great running for him. We have some guys, again, unfortunately for Brian McCarthy, it didn't quite work out for him, but he is rapid as well. So it's going to be an absolutely fantastic opportunity for Brian to potentially win more points. If you want to get the standings, head to rtavirtualmotorsport.com. And there will be announcements made on the next season. We're already thinking about next season, don't not forget to head to motorsport.ie as well. A huge weekend for Irish motorsport with the first Irish driver in an F1 race weekend for 2 decades, I think. In Alex Dunn, he'll be testing for McLaren this weekend at the Austrian, or not this, yes, this weekend at the Austrian Grand Prix. So yeah, so motorsport.ie is where to keep up with all of the best in terms of Irish motorsport, as we are right in the middle of the peak of the season. Do join us next week. It's going to be a lot more sparkly, put together, and we're going to be massively excited. I know the drivers are going to be excited. Some very worried, but excited nonetheless. Have a great week. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the weekend. Whatever you're doing, racing, watching, or doing anything else, indeed. And we'll catch you next Tuesday evening, same time, same place, but an altogether different format as we go left at the Brickyard next week. Talk to you then. Slán go fóill.